Hiya, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rick from Strom. I am the founder and formulator for Strom, and a few weeks ago we did some infographics and some data sheets on Glycomax, and we specifically looked at reasons you might use a GDA, Glycomax, that aren't bodybuilding related reasons in terms of longevity and health, stuff like that. But I wanted to do a video kind of back to our roots on what a GDA is, why you might use it for bodybuilding and physique sports, some of the applications of, and kind of a directions for use, because it's one of those products where lots of people use differently, a little bit like Peak Max and Neuro, things like that. So GDA stands for Glucose Disposal Aid. It's something that is aimed at, a GDA generally is something that's aimed at either increasing your insulin sensitivity, so your body releases insulin more readily in response to carbohydrates in your bloodstream, or something that increases the disposal rate of glucose in response to insulin. So the way in which your body responds to the insulin that is produced kind of potentiates it, if that makes sense. I think that makes sense. I may look back at this and change the way I've worded that. Why might you need to do that? Insulin is released from the pancreas. So your pancreas is covered in beta cells, and the job of beta cells is to monitor how much glucose there is in your bloodstream and release the appropriate amount of insulin required to dispose of that glucose, i.e. to shuttle it into cells. The reason our pancreases can become a bit pants at this over time is fairly simple. Evolutionarily, humans would not have had access to the number of refined carbohydrates, or even the number of carbohydrates that we have now, sugars, those kind of things, and particularly among bodybuilders, the volume of carbohydrates just from things like rice and pasta and so on that they consume can be very, very high. So these beta cells on your pancreas, they can become a little bit desensitized, because rather than seeing glucose 2 or 3 times a day at feeding, blood glucose can become elevated with a modern diet pretty much throughout the day, and the swings in blood glucose can be much, much wilder because of the nature of the foods that we eat these days. Although, poorer insulin sensitivity has been a problem for hundreds of years. It's very much more a problem now than it was 100 years ago. So these beta cells on the pancreas become burnt out. By using a GDA, we do one of two things, or we do two things, hopefully, with a good GDA. By increasing the sensitivity of those beta cells, we release more insulin more quickly in response to the ingestion of carbohydrates, which keeps our blood glucose lower, which prevents those beta cells getting burnt out. We also uptake glucose more readily into cells in the presence of insulin. So the insulin that we are producing is being produced more rapidly and at a slightly higher level, and it's able to do its job a little more efficiently. Why is this beneficial? Elevated levels of blood glucose are associated with poor body composition. Pretty categorically, berberine is the ingredient I'm talking to specifically, but it's been shown in lots of studies. Management of blood glucose, maintaining lower blood glucose, leads to an improvement in body composition, as well as lots of longevity and health benefits. Berberine, at a dose of 1 gram, has got the most data around it for doing this, and berberine is a natural treatment for type 2 diabetes that has been used for hundreds and hundreds of years. So that hopefully gives us an overview on what a GDA is and why we might use it. I'm going to look at the composition of Glycomax specifically, and it's relatively straightforward. You've got 1,000 milligrams of berberine HCl. Now, this is per 5 capsules. Very few people are taking 5 capsules in one go, although there are some people that do. But per 5 capsules, which is what I would consider to be the daily serving amount, you're wanting to have 5 capsules a day, you get 1,000 milligrams of berberine HCl, which is the amount used in studies to improve body composition. You get 500 milligrams of bitter melon extract. You get 500 milligrams of sinulin PF. Now, that is a patented water-soluble cinnamon extract. We used to use a generic cinnamon extract, but it would gum up the capping machine because we used to use 1,000 milligrams of that. So we've got half the amount of a trademarked water-soluble form of cinnamon bark extract that's much, much more bioavailable than the one we used to use. 300 milligrams of ALA, and then 250 mcg of chromium piclinate. Chromium piclinate is an essential mineral that we can be deficient of in our diet these days. So all of those ingredients have really good data around reducing blood glucose, increasing insulin sensitivity, and reducing or improving body composition as a result of those factors. They're all dosed to be at or around what I would consider the clinical dosing, and they all work well as a standalone. What's nice with this is that you can split that clinical dose of all 5 ingredients over 5 capsules, which leads to less stomach disturbances, gastrointestinal disturbances. All of those ingredients, pretty much without exception, apart from cinnamon, can be known to cause an upset stomach. So by having 5 capsules split throughout the day, you don't tend to see that. What I would say is that people who are starting using a product like this, they might want to start at 2 or 3 capsules a day and build up. Now where it gets tricky is talking about dosing and application. You will see some coaches say that you shouldn't be using a GDA if you're not monitoring your blood glucose. That is, I believe, fundamentally wrong. Even someone who had very, very good blood glucose, there are longevity benefits, as shown in the data sheets that I'll put a link to below, longevity benefits to using these ingredients, regardless, as well as body composition benefits. Some people like to monitor their blood glucose when using a product like this, just because they can see the effectiveness, and there's years and years of data behind Glycomax to show that it is effective now. You get 300 capsules in a tub, so at 5 capsules a day, you've got 2 months worth. So it does actually work out to be pretty good value for money. I would suggest for most body composition and health goals, 5 capsules split throughout 5 meals of the day, assuming you're eating 5 times. 1 capsule per meal would be optimal. When dieting, some people like to increase that up to as many as 10 capsules a day. That may give you a field of mild hypoglycemia if you are dieting aggressively, which is a manifestation of low blood sugar. That can't hurt you if it's from using a GDA. It's not like you're using exogenous insulin. Your blood glucose may go low. A lot of bodybuilders, people like Matt Tofton, down from Subtrack, they almost revel in going slightly hypo. It's almost a badge of honor. So that's when your blood glucose is really, really low. And I think they just enjoy toughing it out, but it can't cause you any problems. I actually think the best utility in a product like Glycomax, however, is in the off season. When you're consuming lots and lots of carbohydrates, the longer you can maintain insulin sensitivity for, the longer you can put down quality muscle tissue, the more of the carbohydrates you consume will preferentially be stored as muscle glycogen, which allow you to train harder, recover better, get better pumps, and the less carbohydrates will be stored as adipose tissue, as fat. The other time that it's really, really good is for carbing up for a bodybuilding show. For all the reasons we've discussed, preferential storage of carbohydrates as muscle glycogen, and diversion of storing carbohydrates as body fat. Excessive blood sugar can also lead to water retention, and managing blood sugar with a product like Glycomax, again, can reduce your incidences of that. Follow the advice of your coach. If you haven't used Glycomax in your prep at all, I probably wouldn't add it in at the last moment unless you've used it previously. But if you are peaking and you're loading carbohydrates, 1 to 2 capsules alongside every carbohydrate ingestion can be a really, really good tool to make sure that you're as full as possible, and alongside a product like PeakMax, both full and dry, unless you're fat, in which case no amount of supplements in the world will save you. Don't compete unless you're shredded. I've no doubt this video will cause more questions than it gives answers, but hopefully that gives some of you an overview into Glycomax who maybe haven't looked at the product before, maybe don't know quite what it's for, or weren't entirely sure how to implement it into their regime. Better body composition, better pumps, potentially better health span. That's it. Less body fat, more muscles, better recovery, better pumps.